to accept injury without a spirit of savage resentment, to show ourselves merciful towards those who wrong us. Being a source of good hope to them is characteristic of a benevolent and civilized way of life. Choose to die well when you can. Wait too long, and it might become impossible to do so. If we were to measure what is good by how much pleasure it brings, nothing would be better than self-control. If we were to measure what is to be avoided by its pain, nothing would be more painful than lack of self-control. In our control is the most beautiful and important thing, the thing because of which even the God himself is happy, namely the proper use of our impressions. We must concern ourselves absolutely with the things that are under our control, and entrust the things not in our control to the universe. If you accomplish something good with hard work, the labor passes quickly, but the good endures. If you do something shameful in pursuit of pleasure, the pleasure passes quickly, but the shame endures. Being good is the same as being a philosopher. If you obey your father, you will follow the will of a man. If you choose the philosopher's life, the will of the universe. It is plain, therefore, that your duty lies in pursuit of philosophy. For mankind, evil is injustice and cruelty and indifference to a neighbor's trouble, while virtue is brotherly love and goodness and justice and beneficence and concern for the welfare of your neighbor. For what does the man who accepts insults do that is wrong? It is the doer of the wrong who puts themselves to shame. The sensible man wouldn't go to the law, since he wouldn't even consider that he has been insulted. Besides, to be annoyed and angered about such things would be petty. Instead, easily and silently bear what has happened, since this is appropriate for those whose purpose is to be noble-minded. From good people you'll learn good, but if you mingle with the bad, you'll destroy such soul as you had. Generally speaking, if you devote yourself to the life of philosophy while tilling the land at the same time, I couldn't compare it to any other way of life, nor would I prefer any other livelihood. Humanity must seek what is not simple and obvious, using the simple and obvious. In general, of all creatures on earth, man alone resembles God, and has the same virtues that he has. Since we can imagine nothing, even in the gods, better than prudence, justice, courage, and temperance. Therefore, as God through the possession of these virtues is unconquered by pleasure or greed, is superior to desire, envy, and jealousy, is high-minded, beneficent, and kindly, so also man in the image of him, when living in accordance with nature, should be thought of as being like him, and being like him, being enviable, and being enviable, he would forthwith be happy, for we envy none but the happy. Indeed, it is not impossible for a man to be such, for certainly when we encounter men who we call godly and godlike, we do not have to imagine that these virtues came from elsewhere than the man's own nature. Since every man dies, it is better to die with distinction than to live long. Since it so happens that the human being is not soul alone, nor body alone, but a kind of synthesis of the two, the person in training must take care of both, the better part the soul more zealously, as is fitting, but also of the other, if he shall not be found lacking in any part that constitutes man. Thus it appears that exile helps, rather than hinders body and spirit, by treating them better than they treat themselves. To help us to cheerfully endure those hardships which we may expect to suffer because of virtue and goodness, it is useful to recall what hardships people will endure for immoral reasons. Consider what lustful lovers undergo for the sake of evil desires, and how much exertion others expand for the sake of profit, how much suffering pursuing fame. Bear in mind that they all submit to all kinds of toil and hardship voluntarily. It's monstrous that they endure such things for no honorable reward, yet for the sake of good, we're not ready to bear the slightest hardship. To many people, even to most, despite living safely in their home city, fear of what seems to them the dire consequences of free speech is present. The courageous, in exile or at home, is fearless in the face of such threats. For that reason, they've the courage to say what they think, equally at home or in exile. Why do we criticize tyrants, when in fact we are much worse than they are? We have the same inclinations as they do. We just lack the opportunities to act on them. You will earn the respect of all if you begin by earning the respect of yourself. Don't expect to encourage good deeds in people conscious of your own misdeeds.